Hey, it's Jeff Zito, and thanks for checking out another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast, streaming on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe. Would love a 5-star rating and leave a review. You can check out past episodes online at celebrityjobber.com. You can also follow on Instagram at celebrity_jobber_podcasts and youtube.com/the@celebrityjobber. Who were these celebrities before they became famous? What was it that actually catapulted them to fame? What did they do before they reached stardom? Most everyone was a regular, ordinary person with a regular job. My guest this week played Bernadette on The Big Bang Theory and also Judge Abby Stone on the reboot of Night Court. We'll talk a little about her growing up, what was her big break, her first job, and I'll definitely have to ask her about this new Big Bang Theory spinoff that they announced about a month ago. Melissa Rauch, who played Bernadette on The Big Bang Theory, is my guest this week on Celebrity Jobber.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and leave a review. Check out all our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you pod. What if these celebrities weren't famous? What would they have become? What was their first job? We're about to find out.
Hey, Melissa, how are you?
I'm doing well today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I was just, last night I was talking with my wife about Hope Ann Gregory, and I don't remember the name of that movie, but what was the name of that movie?
Oh my gosh, The Bronze.
Oh my God. That's got to be like one of those. It was one of those that I didn't know about until I watched it, and hilarious. I mean, the accent. Where'd you get that accent from?
You know, I had a college roommate who spoke exactly like that. And when we knew we wanted to set it in the Midwest, where she was from, we basically set it in her hometown just because I knew I wanted the character to talk that way.
Where are you from originally, Melissa?
I'm from Jersey originally. And speaking of accents, I used to have a very, very thick Jersey accent. When I first went to acting school, I tried to do Shakespeare, like Romeo, 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 and sent me to a voice and speech class where I had to lose my accent over the course of a year. But
well, where are you from in Jersey? I'm originally from Jersey as well.
Oh, no way. I'm from Monmouth County, from central New Jersey. How about yourself?
Yeah, okay. So I'm born and raised in Summit in the Watchung Plainfield area, but I still do a radio show down the shore on the Rat, if you ever remember the rock station, the Rat. So, yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Jersey strong.
It's whatever it is about people from New Jersey. Like, what is it? Like, we have some kind of a thing. Is it because everybody else hates us or what?
I think that's what it is. I think it's a trauma bond of some sort. But I have such a special place in my heart for Jersey. I'm Jersey through and through.
So how did you get into this, Melissa? Tell me all the way back. Your parents, are they into show business at all? Or, I mean, New Jersey, close to New York, so you can kind of get, in some off-Broadway, or some Broadway stuff. But where did all this come from?
My parents, they had an appreciation for it and a love for it, but definitely not in the business in any way, shape, or form. But I just always loved comedy, and TV was always like my best friend growing up. I wasn't a kid who really could hang outside much. I was an indoor cat who would just sit and watch TV and study comedy. And Night Court was actually one of the shows that I was really intrigued by as a kid. I think a lot of it went over my head, but it was just something so different, and the comedy felt just so irreverent and left of center. And I started just putting shows on in my basement with my brother. Every time we saw a TV show or my parents took us to see a community theater show, we would try and recreate it. And then my parents were just really supportive. They saw that was something that I really enjoyed. And then they just let me do community theater growing up. And it was always my happy place. And so then when I told them that I wanted to pursue it professionally, they were very supportive. And my dad said, there isn't much job security in anything, so I should just do what I love.
Wow. That's interesting because it seems like a kind of a dream job, right? So you would see parents that maybe weren't in the business and maybe didn't understand it completely be like, that's nice, Melissa, but maybe you want to have a backup plan. Was there any kind of maybe I'm going to minor in this in college or no?
My minor was a terrible backup. I majored in theater and minored in musical theater. I really didn't give myself many options. And so the only thing that I had to fall back on was I was waiting tables a ton. And then I just started doing stand-up and writing for myself because it takes a lot out of you just going to auditions and getting rejection after rejection. So the writing for myself and stand-up was sort of a way to remind myself of why I was doing it, and just getting up on stage and saying, "Oh, right, this is the thing I love. No one's given me a chance to do it yet, but now I remember that I love it, and I just got to keep going."
Celebrity Jobber.
Plan on flying? In order to board domestic flights, your driver's license or state-issued ID must be a real ID. Learn how to get your real ID today at tsa.gov/real ID or visit your local DMV.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito.
So when we're talking about stand-up versus like the sitcoms like that you're on, say like we're on like Big Bang Theory now, Night Court, is it a different thing altogether? Going out there doing stand-up versus going out there delivering lines in a sitcom? Is it completely different, or is there some similarities that you can kind of connect? It has to be, right?
Yeah, I think especially doing Night Court or Big Bang Theory where we film in front of a live studio audience, there is that element of the audience call and response that you have in stand-up. I remember Bob Newhart guest starring on Big Bang Theory, and him and I had this wonderful conversation I'll never forget about him saying that when he does multicams, he asks the producers when he came back to it for Big Bang Theory that I want to be in front of a live audience because that energy from them is so informative of your performance. Because he came from a stand-up background, and I do feel the same way. When you get the energy from the audience, the performance is completely different. So I love the similarities between the two. Of course, you're playing a character in the sitcom version, so it's a little different in that sense. But I think the stand-up rhythms and the waiting for the laughter from the audience is similar in this sense.
Melissa, what was your very first job, not in the business? Like, did you ever have a regular job when you were maybe in high school, or what was your very first paycheck?
My first paycheck was babysitting, and then my first waitressing job was at Johnny Rockets. And I worked there all through high school. And I liked that job very much because at Johnny Rockets you sort of sang into ketchup bottles in between filling and fry. But it was truly like it was server college because I had never waited on a table before, and Johnny Rockets really taught me how to wait on tables. And then I ended up doing that all through college and really in all the years leading up to getting leading up to getting on Big Bang Theory.
Celebrity Jobber. The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito.
Tell me about like the big phone call, the big moment, the big break. Did you get to the Big Bang Theory? Was it like a gradual thing, or was there a moment where, your life changed, you were Bernadette, and, there was a particular big break, big moment that everything changed for you?
Oh, goodness. Leading up to the audition for Big Bang Theory, I couldn't even get a waitressing job. So I was at the unemployment office really trying to rub two pennies together. And I got the audition for the Big Bang Theory, and it was supposed to just be 1 week. It was just a 1 week guest star part, which I was thrilled about. I was a fan of the show. My parents loved the show. And I thought I would just be there for the week. And I was so excited to be on that set. And I thought, okay, well, at least I'll just be here this week. And then it ended up turning into, close to a decade on that show. So I think it was once they started having me back more and more, I thought, oh my goodness, like this is something that is more than just a one-time thing. And it changed everything. It changed my whole life.
Was it weird when you were recognized in public for the very first time? Did you know how to react? Was it strange?
I didn't. And, I think I was so excited the first time I was recognized, and I was just so grateful. And I know that any interactions that I had ever had with someone that I loved on TV were so important to me. And so I ended up, I think I talked to that person longer than they even wanted to talk to me. But I was so excited that I was in the position to, have that connection with someone in that way.
Melissa, tell me a little bit. I mean, I was such a huge fan of Night Court growing up when, John Larroquette and Marky Post. I mean, I was such a huge fan of the original Night Court, and I think it was on WPIX, which was Channel 11 in New Jersey, if you can remember that. So
yeah, I totally remember that.
They brought it back. Is it a different spin? Is somebody from the original, involved? Is there a little bit of a difference? Is it not Judge Harry Stone anymore? It's his daughter. Tell me about the differences between the new and the original.
I'm so glad you were a fan. I was as well growing up. And when I originally went to Warner Brothers, who owns the intellectual property for Night Court, I went in just thinking that I was going to produce this incarnation of the show. And it really wasn't until the end that I decided to jump in and play Harry Stone's daughter. But when we originally went to John Larroquette and said, "Would you do this again?" he said, "Absolutely not." And then he agreed to it. And so it was really John agreeing to come back as Dan Fielding that got us off to the races. And he's our way into the story. And then me playing the daughter of Harry Stone, who was played by the late, wonderful Harry Anderson, is really the connective tissue between this version and the original, and sort of the North Star and guiding light of the series, and this sort of surrogate father-daughter relationship between Harry Stone's daughter and Dan Fielding. And it's then just blossomed into very much its own thing. I think when people hear reboot, I know myself, I cringe and I think, oh gosh, don't ruin that show that I loved. But I think we've really done a great job with paying our respects to the original and just building off of what they did, and then making it new and fresh for audiences who maybe didn't watch the first incarnation. And then we have Wendy Malick, who joined the cast, who's just sitcom royalty, along with the incredible Akrita, who's a Broadway star playing Gergs, and Niambi Niambi from Mike and Molly. And then we have this revolving door of incredible guest stars that join us in our finale episode this week. It's pretty amazing. I'm reunited with Simon Helberg from The Big Bang Theory, who played Howard, my husband, there for over 10 years. And then also we have Reagan Revord, who played Missy on Young Sheldon, come in an homage to the Michael J. Fox Teen Runaway episode from the original. And so it's a big melding of the Big Bang multiverse, and it's a really special, best season finale I've ever been a part of.
So, Melissa, I don't want this to sound political or anything, but it is what it is. This is the time that we're living in. I was just wondering, Dan Fielding in the original Night Court was such a sleazy guy. He was like a womanizer, misogynist. Has he has he changed over the years, or how do you write that? How do they develop that guy now? Has he, is he born again?
It's such a great question, and something that was really important to us when we were developing. We spent a lot of time talking about how does Dan Fielding exist in today's day and age. And what we realized is that he's a man who, like anyone else over the course of 30 years, is going to grow and evolve, and he has. But he's also Dan Fielding. He still thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. He is still at the center of a guy with a heart of gold, and I think that's how Dan Fielding was able to get away with all the stuff he got away with in the 80s and 90s was at the center of it. He was a guy who was just looking for love. There's an episode, one of my favorites of the original Night Court, where Dan's in the hospital and he admits to Harry Stone that between all the thousands of women he's been with, not one of them has ever said, "I love you," and that's what he wants. And so in this incarnation, he found that. He found the love of his life, and he lost her. She passed away, and so it's changed him in that way. But at the same time, he's still Dan Fielding. And that's one of the things I'm most proud of with this incarnation is how Dan Fielding exists in this world and how seamless a transition it was from that version to this version.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. Celebrity Jobber.
I wanted to ask one last question. It's already being talked about. There's another spinoff of The Big Bang Theory. Are you involved? And tell me, if you are. I know you are. I heard you are. So what is the spinoff called, and what direction will it go?
You know what? I don't have any information as of yet. I think they're still in talks and getting it together. But I am as curious as you are. I know that the spinoff is called Kevin Fails to Save the Universe, and it centers around the wonderful Kevin Sussman, who played the comic book store owner in the original Lauren Lapke as John Ross Bowie, and Brian Hussein. And so, but we're waiting to hear. So I'm very interested to see, because it's a great cast they have lined up.
Melissa, very pleasure speaking with you. Night Court, by the way, there's 2 episodes on, I believe, Tuesday. There's a double episode. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, it is a 2-episode, 1-hour event. Like I mentioned, starring Simon Helberg from Big Bang Theory and Reagan Reward from Young Sheldon, Michael Urie from Ugly Betty, and Marsha Warfield from the original. And it's 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock Central on NBC. And I hope everyone joins us. The more eyes we get on it, the bigger chance we get of getting a season 4. So hopefully everyone will join us. Melissa
Rauch, a pleasure. Thank you so much. Fellow New Jerseyite.
Jersey. Thanks so much for the great questions.
Thank you. Take care. Melissa Rauch, who plays Judge Abby Stone in the show Night Court, of course. Bernadette Wolowitz in The Big Bang Theory is such a huge fan of that show. Melissa talks about, growing up in New Jersey, which I didn't know. That's where she was from, in South Jersey, Monmouth County. And her parents are not in the business. She just developed this love of acting and stand-up comedy when she was younger. And at her bat mitzvah, the theme was Melissa's Comedy Club, which I thought was pretty funny. She graduated from Marymount Manhattan College in New York back in 2002, majored in theater, and her minor was in musical theater. So there was no backup plan. Her parents were pretty supportive, which I think is really, really important. Your parents can definitely steer you away from your dream. I don't know if I had a dream or not, but my parents were definitely steering me out of the world of radio broadcasting. I mentioned in the beginning of the interview the movie The Bronze. I don't know if you've ever seen this. It's hilarious. It's about a gymnast from Ohio. She's got this really thick accent. You definitely got to check it out. Her first job, babysitting and Johnny Rockets. She learned how to wait tables. She said in between tables, she would sing into the ketchup bottles. I thought that was fun. And her big break was kind of gradual, because she went on an audition for a guest spot on The Big Bang Theory. The Big Bang Theory for 1 week. And that 1 week turned into 2 weeks, and so on and so forth. But she mentioned she was a huge fan of the show. Her parents were huge fans of the show. And she remembers being recognized on the street for the first time and saying that she talked that person's ear off, just because she remembers interactions with people that she'd admired and talked about how important those interactions were to her. So I think that says something about the person. I was such a huge fan of Night Court when I was growing up. And this new version is pretty cool, because there are a lot of similarities, especially with John Larroquette being, one of the stars of the show, and was definitely not into it when they first approached him with the idea, but obviously came around. And really looking forward to the Big Bang Theory spinoff, which just got announced just a few weeks ago. And of course, Melissa reprising her role as Bernadette Wolowitz. Definitely excited to check that one out. Yeah, I don't know what Melissa Rauch would have become if not a famous actress. Pretty sure she wouldn't be waiting tables, though, at Johnny Rockets. Thank you so much for checking out another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. Streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe. Would love a 5-star rating and leave a review. You can check out past episodes online, celebrityjobber.com. You can also follow on Instagram, celebrity_jobber_podcast, and youtube.com/the @celebrityjobber. Once again, I thank you for listening, and until next week, we'll see you with another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. Thanks again. I'm Jeff Zito.